clearly she had things that she needed to do, and I just wanted to speak anyway. I don't know how long we're going to be talking. However, I felt compelled to do this program because there are so many things going on in the community that are indicators of a high degree of weakness within what we have come to call the conscious community. And I'm even many times saying that that's a misnomer, or that when we say conscious, we're not necessarily talking about the same thing, like so many other things that have grown or come into existence in the form of assumed power within the African community or the African-centered community. They always seem to be become watered down. They always seem to lose their vigor, their power with time, from the inside and from the outside. Of course, from the outside, we expect that. We expect those individuals, those people, that nation, those nations who see us as a threat, not only to their existence, but as a threat to their claims to be superior. We expect that from them. We expect them to try to destroy us. So that's not something that we should be upset about. You get upset about things that you don't expect. You don't get upset about things that you expect. You prepare for them so that their impact is very limited on you and those who you love. The problem for me, and it's not a new problem for me, and I suspect it's not a new problem for any of the warriors listening, and I'm only talking to warriors. I'm going to stop saying greetings family. I'm just going to start saying greeting warriors, because age is irrelevant, and the only people who I intend to talk to for the rest of my existence on this planet are warriors. So it's in speaking to warriors, I understand that the disappointment and the surprise at certain individuals who now have revealed who they are. And I don't have to talk about, or I don't have to speak or say what I'm talking about. Folks know, but I don't really want to pinpoint a particular thing, because this is not unique to this particular situation. This situation has occurred within the last month, really last month and a half, if you will, because it was coming to a head anyway because of Negroes and other folks who are claiming to be conscious. Because this is not a white initiative. This is not a white initiative. This is the brainchild of individuals within the quote-unquote conscious community. The same thing with so much other destruction that occurs for us. These are acts of treason against us. So I don't really want to speak of the disappointment, because the individuals who are the powers that be within what I consider to be the centered community, they haven't lost any power. They haven't changed their agenda. They haven't run. They haven't done anything to make me believe in any way, shape, form, or fashion that they are not the warriors now, that they have been since I first knew them. And I really will also, I guess I can also say in terms of, possibly say, I can say that in terms of the work that Ina and I do, in terms of the politics, the only people who we associate with are warriors. The only people who we associate are people who understand the division. The only possible, real, true vision for African people is one of sovereignty. So these individuals, they haven't changed. If somebody's about the business of sovereignty, or says they're about the business of sovereignty or African liberation or what have you, and they change their politics, they were never about the business of African sovereignty in the first place, as far as I'm concerned. Because that's not something that you can flip-flop back and forth on. But I will say to warriors, before I begin this little statement that I want to make, I will say to warriors, don't put anybody up on a pedestal. Don't put any of these people up on a pedestal. You judge warriors based upon the connection between what they think, what they say, and what they do. and that connection becomes stronger based upon an increasing amount of evidence that there is no contradiction within them. If we look carefully, if we study carefully, we can see that among those individuals who are trying to corrupt what we're doing now, corrupt those individuals who are speaking for us in terms of what we're trying to do now, that when we look back, we see that there isn't a continuous line where what they said was what they thought was what they did. There are points in their story where there were compromises, and we have to be aware of those. We have to study those, and we have to keep that in mind when we're looking for those individuals whose voices we like to hear, those voices that help to motivate us, those voices that reveal the truth to us because they do the research in these particular areas. No one individual is able to do all of this research. No one individual comes with the talents to speak about all issues having to do with us. So there's going to be a number of individuals. We have to be careful of those individuals who make their claim to fame because of where they came from or what they've been through or what line of people or who their relatives are or what have you. We have to be very careful of individuals like that, because if these individuals were about the business of liberating African people, then their ego would not be stepping in the way. And if I start talking about where I came from and what I'm about and how many books I've read and how much I've studied and how much good I've done here and how much of this I've done and who I'm related to and all the rest of this, then we seriously have to question the intent of these individuals, because that shouldn't be part of the discourse. That shouldn't be part of the discussion. Who we are and what we're about should be evident in what we think, what we say, and what we do. And of course, you can't assess what somebody thinks, but you can infer what they think from what they say and what they do. And there shouldn't be a contradiction between those things. There shouldn't be any kind of bragging whatsoever. And a declaration that I am here to free African people's minds, that's not an egotistical thing. That to me is not somebody who is stuck on themselves. Okay, to say that I live every minute of my life to assist African people, and I live each one of those moments like it's my last one, and I know that I have to say everything truthfully to African people, that I have to do this because this is my mission, is not an egotistical thing. That's not about me. That's not about I, for whoever may say that. Okay? To say that I am here to save African people is not to glorify myself as a Messiah. So when you hear, you need to understand the difference between an ego speaking, which has no place on the front line, which has no place in the centered community, has no place among centered warriors, and someone who has sacrificed themselves as a person for the good of African people. And it's important sometimes to say, I am here for this. I am here, me. I am here because my ancestors sent me here. Ina Yah is here because our ancestors sent us here to do this work. That's why we're here. And I can say, I am here because of that. But if I start trying to talk about who my relative was, if I start talking about what school I came from, what Eurocentric school, what European school I came from, if I start trying to use those things as evidence that you need to listen to me because I know more than you, or how many books I read, or what books I read, then you need to question the integrity of that person for you. Because there are going to be, some people are going to follow anybody. Facebook is like the perfect example of how you can get a complete and total fool, or a set of complete and total fools, to be followed by another set of complete and total fools who want to reach the point where they feel good and whole in this insanity. This is a perfect example of this. And Facebook is just a more visible example. We've seen this many times. You want to know who's leading you. Is not the individuals who are saying the most radical statement. It's the individuals who are saying the truth that sounds the most radical, because it goes so much against what we've been decidedly taught to believe. It just sounds super radical. With individuals who I know, when they speak, it's sort of like, well, this is what everybody should be saying. This shouldn't be seen as something odd. This shouldn't be seen as something strange. There is a cultural conspiracy which is directed by groups of individuals within the European nation to remove Africans from planet Earth. That's a fact. And we have so much evidence of that we could spend the next 20 years just laying out the evidence. That's a fact. So any evidence is brought in along those lines. Not any evidence is brought along the lines of showing how some European elite is trying to undermine everybody, because the European elite speaks for Europeans. And any one of them would switch places with them in a second if the opportunity availed itself. So don't get confused in that Marxist, communist, socialist rhetoric either. Because that is an extension, that's an arm, that's a body within the European nation. They're just ticked off because they're not in the seat of power of dominating other people. So don't get caught up into that we're all human and it's us against the elite thing either. Because the elite are their elite. They represent their interests. They go to war for that elite's interest because they believe that that elite knows what it's doing, knows what it's talking about, even if that elite may mistreat them on occasion. That's still their elite. That's family. We're enemy. That's family. So don't be confused on that point either. Listen very carefully to the politics of the people who claim to speak for us. If they're not talking about African sovereignty, if they're not defining enemy correctly and completely, then you shouldn't be listening to what they say. Because obviously they have the gift of gab. Obviously they have some charismatic ability. And none of us is beyond everything. That's what I told our daughter when she was coming of age, where she really understood who Europeans were and what they were about. But being a youngster, she thought that they couldn't affect her. And I told her, no, they're good at what they do. Negroes are very good at what they do. They fear not being in the master's good graces, so they practice very well what they have to do to stay in those good graces. So don't assume that these individuals can't mislead you or guide you in the wrong way or throw a wrench into the equation or try to bring out something irrelevant like about somebody's job when most of us do have jobs working for them. Doesn't make a difference what your job is. You could be the aide to the vice president of this country, or you could be a trash collector. It doesn't make a difference. You're working for them. Doesn't make a difference how high or low the position. So we're getting upset over somebody's position. No, that's them using that to distract us from what these people are doing for us. And then you hear the chorus of Negroes come in to cheer that on. You hear the chorus of Negroes coming in because they are fighting to be at the head of what is called the conscious community so they can receive all the applause and credit, and they can mislead us astray. Don't let these people confuse you. They lie, just like the masters they work for. They lie. So what I want to do this evening, if folks don't mind, I wanted to take a list out of Message to the Warriors. I wanted to, state each point and maybe make some points about it, because every warrior who has a position on the front line is a leader. We have some leaders who speak publicly for us. We have some leaders whose voices you don't hear. We have some leaders who are sitting in the kitchen pretty much every day, all day long, making biscuits for the children. Because a leader is a model in our tradition. The leader is a model of what we're supposed to be like. A leader, what is it? The leader is the warrior, if you will, kind of paraphrase John Henry Clark, who's closest to the enemy in pursuit. And that mama or baba who's in the kitchen making those biscuits for the children every day, who's having conversations with them day in and day out about anything that they bring in that may lead them in the wrong direction in their thinking, who's helping them to understand their power and their responsibility to African people, that's a leader. That's a model of an African warrior, just like the person who's standing behind the podium, who has that responsibility, who's in the spotlight. All warriors are leaders, or you're not a warrior. It's not a, like I heard someone say, some hip hop star say about 20 years ago, oh, I'm not a role model for anybody because I choose that. You don't have a choice. If you're a warrior, somebody's watching. Somebody who has the capability, somebody who has the capacity, somebody who has the curiosity, somebody who knows enough that something is wrong to look in another direction to locate his or her power and to define what needs to be done with it. Because you don't have a choice like that. So we can't dismiss our own responsibilities in leadership roles. And we also can't allow other individuals to dismiss those individuals who speak for us because it's a little dangerous for us or them, or because everybody's in disagreement. Everybody's always in disagreement with us. And until we win, they will continue to be in disagreement with us because it's safer to be in disagreement with us. But we have to defend those who are ours to the best of our ability, in the best ways that we know how, in the only ways that we know how. Sometimes defending is ignoring people who want to engage in a debate so that you can be clearly identified. Sometimes it's ignoring them. Ignoring stupidity is the best defense. Sometimes you have to engage people. Sometimes you have to check people. It just gets a little bit too far. Sometimes they just have to be checked. But you have to pick those fights. You can't go around trying to put out every little fire that Negroes and Yoruba starts, because they're going to start a zillion of them just to distract you and to burn off your energy so that you can't do the real work that needs to be done with our families, our compliments, our children. But we're all leaders. And those people who lead us on the front line, they know this. And part of their job is to make us understand everything that is right and wrong, so that if they disappear, if they get tired, if some physical ailment puts them in a position where they can't speak for us anymore, if they have to go and take care of their mother who turned 79 and has some ailment where she needs constant physical care there, if they can't be in the position to speak for us anymore, we will have their knowledge and we can use it to our benefit. And we can continue to apply that to the work that we do as leaders. We are all leaders on this front line with different talents, different personalities, different skill levels, but with the same heart and the same sovereign vision. We're all leaders, and all of us need to defend each other to the best of our ability. That's what warriors do. You got an army fighting somebody, you defend all of the soldiers on your left, your right, behind, and in front of you. That's what warriors do. This list, for those who have a copy of Message to the Warriors, the discussion begins on page 27 really and ends on 29. It's in the subchapter entitled Nationalist. And I think this list applies to warriors because I think that warriors necessarily are nationalists. How can you fight as a warrior. You can fight as a soldier, but you can't fight as a warrior without a nation. You have to be fighting for something. I'm not talking about your family, your complement, your children. You have to be fighting for something much, 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 much larger than that, and that is a nation. That is an ideal, a people, a worldview, a way, an interpretation of reality. That's what you fight for in every area, whether you have a weapon in your hands or you have a piece of paper in your hands or you have a pillow in your hands or you have some dirt in your hands. Everything that you do, every single solitary thing that you do, every breath that you take is supposed to be geared toward the creation of a sovereign nation for African people, period. You go on vacation. That means that somehow or another is related to creating sovereignty for African people. And that vacation may mean that you have become so wound up in your work that you are no longer effective, so you need to get a breather so that you can recover your energy, your strength, and your sight so that you can come back to work and do better work. So there's nothing wrong with vacations for warriors, if we want to call them vacations, or R&Rs, like they used to say in the U.S. military when guys would come back for a couple of weeks from Vietnam to Hawaii or somewhere. Rest and recuperation, R&Rs. Warriors need that. Every war I'm aware of, warriors get breaks. Well, the soldiers get breaks. You have to have breaks, or you'll burn yourself out. You will kill yourself. When the threat is great, you have to breathe. You have to get away and get you some breathing room. You have to recover. You have to rethink. You have to plan the next steps. Retreat is not defeat. Retreat means that I'm going back to figure out some better strategies, to see what I've done. Whenever you play a game of chess, the coaches will tell you every time you play a game, you take that game back to the beginning and you look it over and you see how you would have played differently for every move, whether you win or lose. You go back and evaluate. So there's nothing wrong with a vacation, if we want to call it that. I just don't have another word for it right now. With a vacation or with a little R&R, with a little time with the complement, a little time with the family, away from where you live, because if where you live is the way that the ancestors and the elders and our warrior scholars tell us, then whatever direction you look, you're going to see work. You're going to see the image of what it means to be a sovereign African, and it's going to force you to continue to be nonstop in your work. So you need to be someplace where you don't have to see that for a minute or two. And come back more empowered. Come back ready to do more work. Come back refreshed. Where was I at? Oh, right there. Okay, let's do this. Let somebody else go and take a break while you take up your work and their work, because while you were gone, somebody was doing your work. Your work doesn't stop just because you leave. That's one of the fallacies on the front line, which burns a lot of people out. Because most of the people on the front line, and if you were relatively speaking, there are a few of us in terms of the entire African population. But we realize how bad the problem is. We realize how much work needs to be done. And in our minds, we don't want to leave it for a second because we are perfectionists. We are of that kind that says if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. And we are afraid that if we leave, if we stop, that things are going to go wrong and that things won't get done. Sometimes we have to step away for a second to let other warriors do those things so we can see that other people can assist, or that other people can do that part of whatever it is that you do as well, maybe even better than you, which is good, because then you don't have to do it anymore. You can go on to those other 70,000 things that you need to do on the front line that you've been waiting to do and had lists all over the place getting ready, and the books that you need to read, and the classes that you need to teach, and the food that you need to cook, and the gardens that you need to start. Really, that's what leaders do. They establish models. They establish models so that these individuals who see them as models can go and do what they do and then do it better. That's one thing that impressed me so much with John Henry Clark in terms of his thinking of his role when he was training teachers in New York. His idea was not that he was training teachers to go into the school system to teach our children better. That was a small figment of it. His goal was to train teachers to train teachers to train teachers, so that the ability to teach well, the ability to educate our children into their power grew exponentially. He wasn't about the business of just training that group of children, that group of teachers to go out and become good teachers in the public school system. These teachers were supposed to be teaching teachers, which is the same thing that Garvey was trying to do. That was the same thing that the Message to the Warriors, Message to the People book was about. These people were supposed to be people who headed the organization, so they were the ones who were supposed to be the established model of what to be, so those people who were becoming or were members of the UNIACL would have a model of what they were supposed to be and improve on. That's what warriors do. Warriors set the standard. Warriors be African, if you will. So on this list, I have 12 affirmations for warriors who exist in this anti-African reality, and I don't know of another one right now. I don't know of a place where Africans are truly sovereign and exist in a state where Urugu has not infused his disease, his virus, so that they spend so much time fighting that virus that they don't have time to nation build the way it needs to be done, in peace and in the tradition of our ancestors. So this world is an anti-African environment as far as I'm concerned. And I don't expect that to be resolved before I go, whether it's tomorrow or 70 years from now. Because it's bad, it's growing, and we need more and stronger people. I should just say more. I should just say stronger, because I don't really care about the numbers. I care about the quality of the minds of the workers. And I don't mean workers in the communist socialist sense. Number one, I will not be contradictory. What I think will be exactly what I say, and what I say will be exactly what I do. And this is within the context of the centered front line, the centered front line, if you will. I'm not concerned if Negroes look at me and think that they see a contradiction. I'm concerned about whether warriors do. I'm concerned about whether warriors believe and can see that I consistently, unequivocally think, say, and do what I'm supposed to think, say, and do as an African warrior who's trying to help build a sovereign nation. I'm not worried about what other people think about me. That's where a lot of us get tripped up. Concerned about other people's thoughts about what we do. They are irrelevant on the front line. We're trying to build a nation. Who cares what Cousin Tony thinks about your attire or your reconceptualization of terms to fit the front line? Who cares what he thinks? Who cares what somebody who's supposed to be a leader in the conscious community says about you? If I was a cursing person, I'd probably be cursing left and right now. Who blank what they think? Who are they? They're, as far as I'm concerned, they're more contradictory than Urugu. So if I don't concern myself with what Urugu says about me, why would I be concerned about what some Negro in consciousness garb who wants to use the race card by pretending to be black so that that will make his opinion have some weight with me. Why would I be concerned about what he or she thinks? I could care less. That's a distraction. And people are watching. People who have the capacity to be African. They're watching to see what distracts you. They're watching to see, is this really worth me trying to find out what this is about? Because it looks like it's just killing people. It looks like it's just wearing them down. It looks like they really can't stand on their own because they're so worried about what everybody says that they're spending all their time trying to control how good their image is. I remember, and my mother, she's down home Christian. But the one thing that she taught me, I can say about her, she did not believe in proselytizing. She's changed a little bit as she's gotten a little older, but she didn't believe in proselytizing. She didn't believe in trying to convince somebody to be a Christian. She didn't believe in that missionary work stuff. And the main reason that she didn't, and she taught us, and my father backed her up 190%, taught us was that you don't have to tell somebody what they should be if they can see you being that, and they can appreciate that. They'll come to you. But we're in a reality where your job is to try to take people where you want them to go, because European culture and society is all about exercising power over other people. That's how they come into power. That's how they control. That's how they dominate, by being able to manipulate other people. And in order to do that, then you must convince them that they are something that you want them to be, so that they will be under your control. They will be under your rules, that your rules are the best, that your world is the best, that your religion is the best, what have you. Warriors don't proselytize anybody. You want to be a warrior, you see what's going on, you step in this direction, you start doing work. Otherwise, stay away from me. I don't want you anywhere near me. I don't want you in any way, shape, form, or fashion in a position where you can do any damage to what I'm doing, because there's enough damage coming from other directions. So we don't have time for that. So our only concern, and we should be concerned about the opinions of other warriors, people who we consider to be warriors, because they love us. And what they say to us, and how they critique us, or how they compliment us, or what have you, we know that it comes from the heart. Because nothing that they could possibly say would move us away from being African and moving towards sovereignty. And if it does, then we know that that person is not a warrior. We know that that individual is an infiltrator and a traitor, and they need to go. Because no one who is a warrior would try to lead us away from our ancestors. No one who is a warrior would try to make us concerned about Urugu's feelings. No one who is a warrior would try to sub-integrate us into Western culture and society. No one who is a warrior would try to convince us that we're wrong about fags and other folks who have no business in the center of the African community. They wouldn't do that. Warriors wouldn't do that. That thought wouldn't even occur to them, no matter how long they've known you. Because they know what it means to be African, and they know that those things have no place. So it would never come up. It would never occur to them. They would never try to check or correct you on that. The last part of that, number one, is I will uncompromisingly be who I think and say I am. And know each one of us came into this at a different point in our intellectual development, the development of our consciousness. So, as I've said before, you have warriors who beat up on themselves continuously because of the things that they have done, or because they haven't read this book, or they haven't accomplished that feat, or they haven't started that school, or they haven't acquired that material, what have you. Everybody comes in at different points, and the judgment of self is not about whether I am exactly where I need to be, knowing exactly what I need to know. The measurement is of intent. The measurement is of how hard I am trying to get there. I remember as a college teacher, A students didn't always make A's in my classes. The highest grades always went to the students who were trying the hardest. So a C student couldn't end up with an A. If that individual demonstrated an extraordinary amount of talent, an extraordinary amount of will in terms of trying to understand the work, even if they didn't understand it as well as that quote-unquote A student. I always graded based upon effort. And that's how we have to judge each other, based upon effort, not whether that person is behind you in terms of what they know or equal to you or ahead of you. That's what destroys so many potential compliments. Judgments like that. And people getting with people because they know more than that person so that they can lead them somewhere. That's that Eurocentric having to have power, exercise power over somebody else. So you go looking for somebody who doesn't know what you know so that you can teach them something. Who are you? Really, to teach anybody anything? You should be setting a standard by what you do. That to me is ridiculous. The first time that I begin to hear about that, I'm like, what? This individual is critiquing you because you haven't read The Destruction of Black Civilization, because you haven't read John G. Jackson, because you haven't read John Henry Clark yet. So they're superior to you, and that gives them the right to dominate you, to control you, to become your elder in your own home. Well, I should say you're older in your own home, because an elder wouldn't do that. Number 2, I will love and build with African persons of goodwill and character. African people of quality. African people of good character. If you haven't yet, save your pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters. Pick up a copy of my Iwa. Read the book slowly, carefully. Get an understanding of what we mean by good character in the tradition of African people. And then act on it within the confines of the centered community. Outside of that, it's not the centered community. We have to make self-serving judgments outside of that sacred safe space. But within that sacred safe space, there shouldn't be anything. There shouldn't be anything but a demonstration of good character by all. Number 3, I will distinguish my wants from my needs and never emphasize the material above the mental and spiritual. That is not to say, and so many people are confused about, that you are supposed to aspire to poverty. A car that barely works, which is a choice, is not a badge of courage for a warrior. You have to get from point A to point B. You have to have transportation. So you shouldn't sit there and say, "Oh well, I can't go get a new car because then people will look at me like I'm not really conscious. I'm now becoming a little bougie." No, you need transportation. And if I could throw something in here, don't get a Volkswagen, don't get a Jetta. This car has been in this shop over a month and a half, and we barely had it more than a year. But get you something that works. Or if you're going to get something that needs to be worked on, then look at it as a project to acquire some mechanic skills. If I was 20 years younger, I would in a second. In terms of distinguishing your wants from your needs, also, primary in a warrior's ability to remain strong, to remain centered, to remain focused. The enemy can never have anything that you need. They may have some things that you want, but they should never have control of anything that you need. to do your work to survive. They should never be able to control anything that you need. And we understand this is Western society, so let's say they have something that you need in terms of what you're doing right now. Well, the goal should be, the effort should be toward making sure that you can supply for those needs yourself in the near future, so that the children who are watching you will see a model of independence, a model of entrepreneurship, a model of sovereignty at the micro level. Number 4, I will learn and teach our children our story. We spent the last really 2 days at Afrikan relating most of what was taught to the African proverb, and I guess I'll paraphrase that too, that the victory, let me find this, it's right here on the wall, because they had to say it verbatim, and I guess I need to say it verbatim too. Until lions have historians, tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Until lions have historians, tales of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. We're supposed to be the historians in our homes, in our communities, in our schools. We're supposed to be the ones who are the lions, who are telling the lion story from the lion's perspective. The hunter in our space is supposed to be irrelevant. The hunter in our space is supposed to be dismissed. The hunter in our space is supposed to be there only as a foil to be critiqued by us, to show how they have lied. This is the purpose for me of the hunter. This is the purpose for us of the hunter. To use what they have said to show that they are liars. To show the kind of quote-unquote people they are. That's our role. That's a major part of our story. To use what they have said to show the children exactly what they are. So we're supposed to be the historians to our children, to whatever adults earnestly come to us. We're supposed to be the historians. That doesn't mean that we need to know everything that John G. Jackson and John Henry Clark and Doc Ben and all the rest of them know, but at least we should know where to get it or where to send them to get it. You can't spend all your time reading and doing the work that needs to be done. As part of the problem with some folks is that they spend so much time in the book study, and they're very knowledgeable, but they're doing nothing in terms of nation building. This stuff is already down. It's like the 60s and the 70s as far as I'm concerned, and really that part of the 80s was a time for us to discover what we needed to move forward. You don't need to know the entire story of African people to do the work. But you have a majority of us in warrior scholar status that this is what we still do. You get information, you act on it. You get more information, you act on it. You get more information, you act on it. You don't get information and then get more information and then get more information and get more information and do nothing. You're supposed to act on what you know. We got a ton of information, tons and tons and tons and tons of books, libraries full of books, pamphlets, articles, newsletters. But the vast majority are doing exactly nothing with it. Exactly nothing. I will help them see and understand their power and their personal responsibility to use it in the best interest of African people. That's the priesthood. We have to teach our children just how powerful they are, not ego gratification, giving them a case of the big head. They can just understand just how bad they are. And show them that power, that badness needs to be directed toward building a sovereign African nation, which they can do with our assistance, without telling them the truth, complete and total truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me the Creator, so help me the ancestors, so help me the deities, so help me everything that's African. I will rear them to be African nationalists. I will give them a political understanding of reality out of a politics that comes out of an African interpretation of reality. Number 5, I will strive to be independent in every possible way and help my fellow warriors to be likewise. I posted a little statement on Facebook today, and I'll do it because there has to be people who are there doing this particular work, because there are people there who have the capacity to be warriors. But that shouldn't be where the bulk of us are, or where we're spending hours of our day every day. But our posted simply said that if everything that we buy, if all the stores that we use are owned by them, then to boycott one or two is irrelevant, because this is family for them. That means I can boycott Goodyear and go to Goodrich, and they're like brothers. So it doesn't make a difference to them whether you boycott or not, because they're still going to get your money. They're still family. So what if it comes through Uncle Bob or his wife, Auntie Sue, whoever? It's still going to feed the family. It's just not coming in the same way. But it's coming out of your pocket and going into theirs, whoever's pocket. So if we're going to boycott, if it's going to be something that's a successful boycott, then that means you have to disconnect yourself from them and build your own. Otherwise, there's no real boycott, because all they'll do is they'll appease you here, and then they'll appease you over there when you boycott, and then they'll appease you over there a little bit when you boycott, until they get to a point where you are again totally confused about who you are, totally confused over the fact that they are not you, and then they'll continue to do the same thing, which they have done for hundreds of years in this country. We have to establish an entrepreneurial model. We have to work toward being completely and totally independent of them in every possible way. That's a model of sovereignty that the children can learn from. Number 6, I will respect my body and treat it like the temple it is. You are what you eat. You are what you read. I will endeavor to elevate my martial skills to their highest potential, and always be on guard for myself, my family, community, and nation. I will know how to fight to some degree, somehow, somewhere. I will know how to fight, because that's part of the definition of a warrior, being able to fight. Some of us think that's the whole definition of a warrior. That's only part of a definition of a warrior. It's an important part, no doubt, but it's not the whole definition. But it needs to be part of our definition of being a warrior. So any man, woman, child in the centered community should have some form of martial skills, especially mental martial skills, because you can have all the muscles in the world and not be able to hit anybody because you don't know how to do that. Or have all the training in the world, all of the different forms, mixed martial art, what have you. And because you don't know what enemy is, you have not defined your enemy correctly, then you're useless. Number 7, I will honor our warrior ancestors only. I will honor our warrior ancestors only. I will honor our warrior ancestors only. None other. None other. We need to be fed by the power of spirit that is about the liberation, empowerment, and sovereignty of African people alone, because that's what we need to be 150, 190, 200,000% about. I'll honor our warrior ancestors only, using them at their finest as a model of the perfection to which I aspire. Number 8, I will never use derogatory, demeaning language against my brothers and sisters. I will not listen to people who try to rationalize terms that speak to the N-word as if it came out of Africa somewhere, and as if it's being used in a society where every word doesn't carry political context, doesn't carry a political meaning. You can't talk about the N-word. I don't care how you phrase it, how you spell it, within the context of a racist, anti-African society, and try to play it off like this is a word that we should be using because this is what we called ourselves way back when, as if there's no cultural context here, as if there's no anti-African definition of black folks here. I don't care if it is the truth. You don't use it here because you're operating within a cultural context and you're talking to people who do not understand that this is a cultural context, so they'll take that and run. Oh, well, yeah, we all ends because that's what they called us way back when. Well, that's what we called each other way back when. And that's what we were way back when. You can't do that within the politics of a racist state, of a racist nation, of a racist country within a racist nation. You can't act like the politics are irrelevant. So even if it were true, which I don't believe that it is, even if it were true, you don't use it in this cultural social context because you know the meaning that is given here and you know the ignorance of so many of the people who you're talking to about who we are, and they are looking for an excuse to be able to say, oh, this is African, just like those folks who are following these homosexualized Africans who are saying that they came from the continent of Africa, so they'll have an excuse to continue with their sexual insanity. I will never use derogatory, demeaning language against my brothers and sisters. I will always show them the utmost respect. I will speak to them in the race, nation, spirit of family, knowing that we are one and that to curse them is to curse myself. Number 9, I will never confuse friend with enemy and will, without qualification, treat each accordingly. I don't treat my enemies like they're my friends. And I don't treat my friends like they're my enemies. I don't deceive people who I consider to be friends or warriors. If they have a product that they have come out with themselves, and it is through this product that they make their living, then I'm not going to take that product and duplicate it or steal it from them and then sell it and make a profit for myself, whether I'm giving them part of it or not, without their permission. I'm not going to do that because friends don't do that to each other, and warriors are supposed to be friends. Warriors don't rip each other off. Warriors don't deceive each other. And if you're looking to see who is a deceiver, you don't look at the person who originated the material. You don't look at the person who's trying to set a standard and a model of being independent based upon a product that they have created. You look to the individual who is stealing it, who is selling it, and it doesn't belong to them. Whatever excuse they may come up with, well, this belongs to all African people because this is knowledge that all African people should have, and therefore it's not the domain of anybody. Well, then you go and make it. You go give the lectures. You go give the speeches. You go write the books. And then you sell your own. You don't steal someone else's hard work and then sell it for your own profit and talk about you doing this because this belongs to all African people, and if it wasn't for you, then African people wouldn't have access to this knowledge. That's deceit. That's treason because you are keeping warriors from doing the work that's required for sovereignty. They have to survive too, and they're supposed to set the standards, the model. You're corrupting the process with your selfish, greedy self, with your anti-African self. Number 10, I will live to remove enemies from my people's minds and spaces. I will live to remove. I will live. This is what I live for. I will live to remove enemies from my people's minds and spaces. And I would say where it will be allowed, because you can't make anybody African if they don't want to be. And if they don't want to be, then that's time you better spend elsewhere. I will work to secure all that is ours. Talk about security all night long. No centered African space should be insecure, ever. 24/7, 365. It should always be secure. Our guard should never be down, and if that's gets us stressed to the point where we die early, then we need to die early, because those places need to be secure 24/7, 365. Number 11, I will always remember to never forgive or forget what has been done to African people, and do all I know and am able to do to stop this genocidal process now and never let it happen again. I will always remember to never forgive or forget what has been done to African people, and do all I know and am able to do to stop this genocidal process now and never let it happen again. Number 12, I will do all in my power to liberate, empower, and make African people sovereign. I will do all in my power to liberate, empower, and make African people sovereign. And as I close this up, I want to read in here also definition of sovereignty. What page is that on? Some page. Here it is. And even though these are my words, I didn't originate the sovereign concept. Far from that. It says, being sovereign means having absolute control over the life of the nation. Right now, as always, for African people, sovereignty is measured by how intelligently, independently, and powerfully we control our resources, story, culture, time, space, and destiny. It is to have the power within the nation to control our lives and to control them in our best interests, regardless of opposition from outside. Accordingly, being sovereign has to mean that there's no one beyond us who makes any decisions about how we rule ourselves, how we live, what we believe, how we deal with enemies, whether aliens or traitors, and how we visualize our future and communicate and express that vision. It means that we are completely and consciously self-defining, self-determined, and self-empowered. And since no nation has ever risen to power and stayed there without holding their own traditions sacred, sovereignty necessarily means that we know, respect, protect, and extend in time through every coming generation who we are as a direct reflection of our ancestors. I'm talking to warriors tonight. Those are the only people I'm talking to. I'm only talking to frontliners. And everybody I'm talking to is a warrior, understands what I'm saying, and knows what I'm talking about. They are aware of what's been going on for about the last month and a half. They are aware of those individuals who have revealed themselves for the Negroes that they are in African garb. They have always been aware, or since awakening, since consciousness, they have always been aware of the enemy outside, the genocidal, menticidal assault against African people. I am only talking to warriors tonight. I only write to warriors. We only teach warriors here. I don't have time for anybody else. We don't have time for those games. We have work to do. Bibi Fahodie.
Reaching vision of what we're supposed to be doing. We don't understand that these relationships are supposed to be about building family, community, and a nation that's going to be powerful. The Iroquois were famous for this, and a lot of our ancestors were famous for this, where they had this seven generation philosophy, where everything that you did, you thought about its impact 7 generations down the road. So you weren't doing things for you per se. You were doing things in terms of how it would affect your people 7 generations down the road. We have lost that in this extreme individualism of the West. So many of the things involved in our relationships are caught up in the insanity of the West. We're following a people who don't know what they're doing. We have the adults following the children, and the children don't know where they're going. So we caught up in this super individualism where we can't tolerate anything that does not go our way. That's not how relationships work. It may not be 50-50, but that's not how relationships work. You're not married to yourself. You're not having a relationship with yourself. You have a relationship with another person who is a unique individual just like you. One of the things along the lines of that has to do with romance. And I want to talk about the origins of the word romance coming from Rome, but this idea of romance that we have that is so ephemeral, so short-lived, that we see this person, we get excited about this person, we're infatuated about this person, and then it's gone. It doesn't last long. It's all based upon this materialism where you are supposed to demonstrate your love for this person by how much you can spend on this person. And we've lost it so quick. When I was a child, I was taught regularly, it's not the gift, it's the intent behind the gift. And I'll give you an example. I can remember when Enya and I were dating, and we were in grad school, and I had no money. But at that time, I practiced Valentine's Day. At that time, I practiced Christmas. I practiced all of these things. And it was expected on these days that you did something. But I had no money. I was a graduate student. So one Valentine's Day, I went and got some pork sausage. And I took the pork sausage, and I rolled it out, and I cut out parts, and I fried her some pork sausage. She was, ecstatic about the idea that I had taken the time to think about that to that degree. I know it was stupid, but at that time, that was all that I had. Her mother appreciated me because I went and bought her some long underwear because we lived in Chicago, and her mother understood I was more concerned about her health than about her showing off someplace. We have lost that. To me, that was normal and natural because that was the way I was raised. We have to raise our children the same way. We have to reverse this process, this materialism, people going into debt to impress somebody that they love them. People having to say to somebody 40,000 times a day, I love you. If you do, then that'll be evident in what you do for that person. I love you while I'm smacking you upside the head. I love you while I'm treating you like this. I love you while I'm cheating on you. That's not love. Love is supposed to be an act. It's supposed to be what you do. Now, I am not saying that romance is not part of our tradition. We are human beings. When an African man meets an African woman, more than likely, if there's some interest, then there's some infatuation involved. You like what you see. Nobody wants to get up in the morning and look at something that they can't stand. You like what you see. But our approach to it was very, very different. It was not based upon materialism. It was based upon what I can do for you, how I can show you respect, the amount of protection that I have for you. One of the perfect models of that is the Afrikan culture, where in their homes, the man always sleeps on the outside. And it's like these traditions follow us and we don't know these Africanisms that follow us here and we don't think about it. My father always slept on the side of the bed that was closest to the door. Always. And I always sleep on the side of the bed that's closest to the door because they're supposed to have to get to you before they get to her. Oh, I'm sorry. We changed the definition of what it means to be a man. We're supposed to be males now, so it doesn't make a difference. Yes, it does. It makes a major difference. But the Afrikan people, it would describe it and they would say, the woman, when she had to get up out of the bed to go do something, whatever it was, she would wake him because she had to crawl over him in order to get out of the bed. That's how secure she was. In order to get to her, you really literally had to get through him to get to her. That's one of the things that needs to be brought back. The idea that somebody's tearing through the door downstairs in the house at 3 o'clock in the morning and you ask her, could you go check who see what that is? Something is really wrong with that picture. Something is very wrong with that picture. In the West, romance because there is this extreme competition between people, between men and women, to see who's going to be on the top, to see who's going to win, to see who's going to have the final say in the decision. But this is a very hateful competition. So romance allows, you can look at it this way, it allows there to be peace enough for there to be procreation. Otherwise, it's just a constant battle between the men and women. Who's going to be in charge? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Who's going to have this? So it creates a safe space for that. This idea of love also, which is extremely problematic within the Western context. And when we say something is problematic in the Western context, people who don't want to think about it, they say, oh, well, you're saying that romance didn't exist among African people because you're saying something's wrong with it. Oh, you're saying Africans didn't love each other because you're saying something's wrong with it. No, I'm saying something is wrong with it in the Western context. Not traditionally, but within the Western context. So when we talk about love within the Western context, then we're talking about this infatuation, this quick, I fell in love with you immediately. Our ancestors understood that love was something that took some time. It took a long time. It was described as like climbing a mountain. When you got to the top, after all those years of being with that person, when you meet somebody, you may think that you trust them, but you really have no idea whether that person will die or kill for you. When you know, let's talk about when you guess and when you think. When you know that that person will live and or die for you, then you have love. I said love doesn't come to you been with a person for a long time. It's not a short thing, but because we're in the West has redefined things so that it can play these games with our pockets. It's the same thing when we're dealing with being a human being. Our ancestors did not call you a human being when you were born. You were a person, but you weren't a human being. Human being was something that you earned through your actions. So if you acted like a human being, if you matured like a human being, then you were qualified to be called a human being. The West has redefined this, so you can have people like serial killers being called human beings. Okay? So we have to understand the context of what we're talking about, the difference between Western society and African society. In case anyone is confused, I'm an African, and I'm assuming everyone else here is. And if we're calling ourselves Africans, then that ought to be the tradition that we look to in terms of defining who we are and what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to act. No one else's tradition will suffice. No one else's tradition is correct for us. Europeans don't look to African traditions to figure out who they are, who they're supposed to be. They look to their ancestors. We should look to our ancestors accordingly. I wanted to start this out a little differently. When I was in DC doing a lecture earlier this year, the brother who invited me over and his complement, I stayed at their house, and they were having a disagreement. And they were like I can't detect disagreements between couples. I've been married for about 27 years, so I know when something is up. And they were trying to keep it on the, I don't want to say down low, but I take it somewhere else. They were trying to keep it undercover. And so I said something to Baba Kush, and he looked at Antu, which is her name, and he said, I said something about you two make such a nice, I was trying to change the, and she guys make such a nice couple, you know, and he said, yeah. He said, I love Antu, sometimes I like her. And I said, now that's an understanding. That's something that people who haven't been with somebody a long time don't understand. I say the same thing about my wife. I love her to death. Sometimes I even like her. And we have to understand, and that's not something that's a problematic. Because she'll say the same thing about. She'll probably say, I love him to death, and maybe sometimes I like him. Okay. So it's the idea of love in our tradition is very different than it is in the West. And the idea of what you expect from someone else, how you're supposed to respond to someone else is very different in the West. Now, Brother Kalanji asked me to talk about things that make relationships last in our community. And I really, at first, didn't want to do that. I want to talk about some of the, and I am. I'm going to talk about, I don't know how much time I have, but I'm going to talk about some of the things that we need to think about. So it's going to be sporadic, but some of these things are important to me. The West raises men to look. It's raising women to look now at any and every female who walks by. I remember teaching the class at Morehouse, and there was a sister who was walking down the hallway. You know the sound of sister's shoes is different than the sound of brother's shoes. You got the heels, right? And I'm sitting there watching the class, and this is a class on relationships, so I'm looking at the brothers. I know what's going to happen. And as soon as she stepped into the doorway to pass our doorway, she wasn't coming into the classroom. As soon as she passed, all the heads went. They're trying to pretend that they're paying attention to me, and every single head in the class turned to see her as she passed by the door. Every single solitary one. We somehow get the impression that once we get married, once we find that one, once we fell in love, all of the behaviors that we have cultivated so well over our lives are somehow going to stop. They're going to change. Everything overnight is like instantly you're going to lose your eyesight, and you're not going to look anymore. And we don't understand that that's not the way that we work. So if you have spent your life cheating, that's really what I wanted to know. If you have spent your life cheating, I really don't care who she or he is. You're going to find your way back, unless there is a major concerted effort to stop it. You can't just assume that because I found this one, now everything is going to be fine. I'm not going to look anymore. If that was the case, then how come over 60% of the people who get married in our community end up in divorce? It's well over half in the community in general, but over 60% in our community, and that's probably an underestimate in terms of the number of people who end up getting divorced. And we're not, that's not being messed up by the number of people who get married, divorced, married, divorced, married, divorced, married, divorced. That's still a standard, and the standard is growing. When I was in graduate school, it was like 52, 53% of us. Now it's well over 60% of us who get married end up divorced. And a lot of times it's because we come into relationships with the wrong ideas about ourselves and the wrong expectations. And when there are divorces, and now I'm sort of talking off the cuff, when there are divorces, it's not one person's fault. It's not one person's fault. Well, let me put it like this. Very few times is it going to be one person's fault. It's always the person's fault if they put their hands on you. That's a given. But if we exclude that, then you got two people, as it takes two people to tango. It's two people who have some kind of issues that's not allowing them to get together. And when we break apart, we end up finding the same person again because we haven't worked out those issues with ourselves. We haven't found what's wrong with us. Now, what's wrong with him or her? We haven't found out what's wrong with us first. We have to solve those problems before we get forward in the relationship. So,
I think the important thing for people to understand is that in America we have an education system that does not speak to the needs of African children. We want to be able to be who we are, talk how we talk, walk how we walk, live how we want to live, and be producers and providers for our children in the future. We want to be African.
When the weight of the world is on your shoulders, tag the power within and then you say, no, I can make it. They can do what they want, cause I will never stop growing, and we can make it African. From ancient love and family, we gave the world humanity. We made this world a sacred place. worse than animals, stacked on top of each other. Somehow we made it through the pain and suffering. They tortured us in slavery. It's quite amazing. We stood up for natural bravery. Look at our people, the conditions we are living in. It's time to battle this world. It's time to shine again. When the weight of the world is on your shoulders, take the power within and then you say, no, I can make it. Try to consume you. They can do what they want, cause I will never stop. Joy, and we can make it. We're in this together, for better or worse, through the dark and the light. We're in this together, standing tall, we won't quit. And I tell you, we can make it. The power within and then you say, no, I can make it. African. When the pain in this world try to consume you, they can do what they want, cause I will never stop. Joy, and we can make it.
And so what hip-hop music has done is served as an alternative communication mechanism and given African children in this country some of the only understanding of African history that they'll ever receive.
There was a period of time in this country after Reconstruction where African people owned a lot of land, owned a lot of businesses, and did a lot of things. But what happened was the American government, the Ku Klux Klan, and other organizations organized in smashing that effort. So it's not that we haven't tried to own land and have not organized businesses. It's that if you are African in America or in Latin America or in the Caribbean or in the continent, you will be hunted.